reminiscences, and I won't talk very long. Doris and I always started out talking about how we first met, and this is a story of how how I met two people. Lee and I had just bought a house at 22 Kensington Road in Madison, New Jersey. This is in the early summer of 1954, exactly 50 years ago. 60 years ago. And I was working outside, laying a brick walkway, brick on sand. I was very confident about it. I didn't know that really you shouldn't lay it on sand, you should lay it on stone dust. But anyway, down the street comes this attractive woman, blonde, and it turned out that she was stopping at every door, and she came to see me. She came to our place. She was collecting for the Heart Fund, and it's hard to refuse that. And so we stood there and made some small talk, and then I took her into the house and introduced her to Lee, and we wanted to know a little bit about each other. One of the obvious questions. We had two children at that time, 2 and 4 years old. One of the obvious questions is, do you have any children? And the answer was a clear no. And that was all very nice. And then it seemed to me it was only a few weeks later, but it may have been a month or so. She came down the street pushing a baby carriage with Bob in it. And it's the first time I met Bob. This is the first time I met Doris, the first time I met Bob. And we instantly bonded.
Remain so.
Bill and Doris and Lee and I became fast friends as couples. And we visited back and forth. We dined, and we went to theater, and we went to France.
Caribbean.
Eventually, yes, and they moved away, and so we had to. The visit was a bigger deal. But we kept it up for a number of years, and then we started to travel together, and this kind of uncorked Doris's love of travel. We went to a whole series of islands in the Caribbean and the Mexican Riviera, and I guess the culmination of that was we both made trips to. The two couples made trips to France, but we made sure that they overlapped. So we overlapped in Paris and in Bordeaux, and we rented a gîte in the Dordogne, and then we drove down to Montpellier and Carcassonne, and it was a wonderful thing. Then Doris and Bill moved away. Bill went through a long illness, and all of a sudden, I guess in the early 90s, Doris was a widow. She bought a house on Cape Cod. She had been living in Syracuse before and decided that for the long run she didn't want that. So she bought a house on Cape Cod, hosted a wedding for Kate and Stuart, and then I became a widow. And after a while, we decided to get married. And this was the terrible thing that happened in there was after Bob, there were 3 daughters.
It's terrible?
Hmm?
It was terrible?
Well, there were 3 daughters, Dana and Lisa and Kate. And after a long illness, we lost Dana. So Doris went through that shattering experience. Doris and I were married in this house at Bluefish Lane, with all of these kids here, all the eligible ones, everybody but young what's his name over there, and this fellow. And then the next reminiscence is we kind of uncorked Doris's love of travel. And on the Cape, it's very lovely. It's a wonderful place, and we made many friends and so forth. But in January or so, you get the feeling that you want to go away. So we went off to Kauai for 6 weeks every year, and that was magic. And we enjoyed the mountains and the beaches and the eateries, and we went to some of the other islands and the big seals and so forth. And then every fall we went traveling east. We went to England and to France and to Italy and to Spain and to Greece and to Egypt and to Turkey. And in 2005 I took Doris to Japan. And in retrospect, she felt that was her best trip. I was able to introduce my friends in Japan to Doris. So Doris Doris lived a rich life, and I was privileged to be part of it. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah.